Okay, we're singing a song of the saints of God, and here are some saints of God. And they are all, we're going to pass the microphone from one to the next. And so we need to be in the order that you're going to be. So Miss Benicia over here, she is St. Matthew, and then we have St. Mark, and then we have St. Luke, and then we have St. John, and then we have St. Paul, and then we have St. George. That's me. And all right, so hear from some of the saints.
Greetings, my name is Matthew. I was born in Cape Namet and died in the 1st century AD Ethiopia. I was also known as Saint Matthew, and as a Roman tax collector, after meeting Jesus, I became a follower and one of the 12 apostles. I am thought by some to have written the Gospel of Matthew. It is thought that I preached the gospel to the Jewish community in Judea before going on to other countries. My feast day is September 21st. My symbol is the winged angel. I was venerated in at least 9 denominations.
Blessings. My name is Mark, also known as John Mark. I was born around 12 AD in Cyrene in Pentapolis of North Africa. I died around 68 AD in Alexandria, Egypt. I'm thought to have been around 56 years old. The Gospel of Mark is thought to have been written by me. I founded the Episcopal See of Alexandria, which is one of the most important of early Christianity. My feast day is April 25th, and my symbol is the winged lion.
Shalom. My name is Luke, and I was born somewhere between 1 and 16 AD in Antioch, modern Syria. And I died between 84 and 100 AD in Thebes. Authorship of both the Gospel and of Luke and the Acts of the Apostle are ascribed to me. I'm thought to have been a physician and a disciple of Paul. I'm known as the patron saint of artists, physicians, bachelors, surgeons, students, and butchers. My feast day is October 18th, and my symbol is the winged ox.
I am known as John the Evangelist, St. John the Divine, and one of the sons of thunder with my brother James. I am one of the first disciples of Jesus who called me from my fishing career to follow him, and boy, am I glad I did. I wrote the Gospel of John, 3 epistles called John 1, 2, and 3 this morning, and the last book in the Bible called Revelation.
Which I also heard this morning.
I have also been called the Apostle of Love because I have used the word love over 80 times in all my books. About 39 times in the Gospel, 34 times in the epistles, and about 8 times in Revelation. Presiding Bishop Curry got it right. Our faith is all about love. I have been a fervent follower of Christ, and the purpose of my gospel is to prove that Jesus is the Son of God, and that all who believe in him will have eternal life. So, if you have not read my gospel, I invite you to start reading, as it will deepen your relationship with Christ. I promise you will not be sorry. I am the last surviving apostle of Jesus, as I lived over 90 years and died a natural death. I will leave you with my most well-known verse in the opening chapter of my gospel. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. These words should encourage you to continue reading my gospel about Jesus. And my winged symbol is the eagle.
Blessings. My name is Saul. I was born in Tarsus in southern modern-day Turkey and died around 64 AD in Rome. I was a Pharisee and persecuted the early disciples of Jesus. After I approved the execution of Stephen, I was traveling on the road to Damascus to find Christians. About midday, I had a conversion experience. lost my vision, and later was baptized and became a Christian myself. I made 3 missionary journeys to spread the Christian message to non-Jewish communities in Asia Minor, Greece, Macedonia, Cyprus, Judea, and Syria. I am also known as Paul. After my conversion, I had a new name given to me. I am a Christian apostle who spread the teachings of Jesus in the first century world. I founded Christian communities in Asia Minor and Europe. I wrote many letters to those communities. Some were read, some weren't. My feast day is January 25th. My major shrine is the Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls in Rome, Italy.
Greetings. My name is George. I'm St. George, the patron saint of England. I was a king. I was martyred for following Jesus Christ. I'm venerated or recognized in the Eastern Orthodox churches, in the Western Roman Catholic Church, and in all number of denominations around the world, including the Episcopal Church. I have lots of legends that are about me, but the most famous one is about my slaying a dragon. And my symbol is right up here in this window. My symbol is the cross of St. George, which is a red cross on a silver shield. And then the other thing that's connected with me is that dragon. Now, in our window, we have a lizard, which is what a dragon was, but this is a small version. And what was that? A baby dragon, yeah. Well, it sounds terrible that I'm slaying a baby dragon, but anyway. So that's St. George. And what we've done here is we've gone to all the windows except our bishops. So there's Matthew, Mark, Luke, John in the 4 windows across behind the organ pipes. And you can see in each window the symbol that you were told about. And then we have St. Paul, who was a preacher and a teacher, so his window is behind the pulpit, so he overlooks anybody preaching. And his symbol is, among other things, the sword. That sword is because he was a Roman citizen, as well as a Pharisee and a Christian. And when he was martyred at Rome, unlike many other Christian martyrs, he did not have he wasn't burned at the stake, he wasn't thrown to the animals, he wasn't stoned to death. His head was chopped off with a sword because that was a better way to die. That was as a Roman citizen. You got that privilege if you're going to be executed. And then the dragon, the lizard, is in this window. Now, I'm going to tell you about one more saint, and that is St. James of Jerusalem, the brother of the Lord. And I'm doing that because that is the saint's day on which Deacon Betty was ordained. And James is often called the brother of the Lord. He's also called James the peacemaker, the mediator. He was the head of the church in Jerusalem. He ended up being the person who dealt with St. Paul, who came with an offering from all those Gentile Christian communities around the Mediterranean. The people who were the Jewish Christians in Jerusalem didn't want that tainted money. And there was also a big argument in the church about whether you had to be circumcised and then baptized if you're going to become a Christian and you were a man. And there were some other rules about following all the dietary laws, all of that. James of Jerusalem is the person who said, after much prayer and consultation with God, he said, the only thing that people who are becoming Christian have to do is be baptized. They need to abstain from eating blood that's sacrificed to idols. And this offering from the Gentile churches is an offering of love, and we are going to accept it. There was a famine in Palestine at the time. So James is the one who brought a new vision to the church and a way of understanding all of the church, the Gentiles and the Jews. And the legend about him is that he was in Jerusalem, and that the various members of the Jewish communities, because he'd been such a devout Jew, were really concerned about all these Jews who were becoming Christians in Jerusalem. So the story is they asked him to preach against Jesus. And they put him up on the pinnacle of the temple so he could be heard everywhere. And instead, he preached about Jesus and his love of Jesus. So he got thrown off the pinnacle of the temple, and that was the end of him. But his story is out there, and one of the things about ordaining a deacon on the feast of St. James of Jerusalem is that idea of being out in the world for everyone to hear and being just as brave as you have to be. All right, thank you, saints. So, as I said, we have all these saints in these windows. And a lot of times we may not think about the fact here at Trinity Church, we're surrounded by these saints. Those 4 bishops don't get saint in front of their name, but the first bishop of the Episcopal Church, Samuel Seabury, is up there. The founding bishop of this congregation, the first missionary bishop of the Episcopal Church, Jackson Kemper, is right up there, right under Samuel Seabury. Another missionary bishop, Bishop Tuttle, is on the other side opposite Samuel Seabury. He was a missionary bishop who went as far as Montana and eventually came to Missouri to be our bishop, and he also became a presiding bishop. And then underneath Bishop Tuttle is Bishop Scarlett, and Bishop Scarlett was a bishop in the 1930s, and he was known, 30s and 40s, he was known for his activism for justice and peace. So we have those guys and what they stand for following Jesus. We have all these saints, and then we have all the saints in the garden behind us. And St. Paul called all of the Christians, wherever they were, saints. So we are surrounded by saints, and we sit among saints, and we follow saints. And the key to following other saints is all of us are followers of Jesus. Now, we heard the Beatitudes this morning. That's the blessed R's. And that is, those words are the very first words of Jesus' famous Sermon on the Mount. And this is the longest sermon Jesus gave to a crowd as well as to his disciples, anywhere in the Gospels. It goes from chapter 5 in Matthew's Gospel through almost every word of chapter 7. And Jesus is starting with these blessed are, all these words that are really familiar to us, but they are not necessarily easy to hear. Some of us have been struggling with some of the lines in these Beatitudes most of our lives. So we say, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Blessed are the merciful. Blessed are the pure in heart. Blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake. And then, blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. And what are you supposed to do with all these blessings? You're supposed to rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. These are not easy words to hear because they require something of us. It makes the Sermon on the Mount makes clear that there's a difference between being a disciple and being a believer. Being a disciple means that we have to follow Jesus, and as Betty said earlier, out into the world. Being a disciple means that we are going to ask, what would Jesus do? We're going to ask, where would Jesus go? We're going to ask, to whom did Jesus make a point of speaking? Probably you're not going to ask it that way, but I used to be an English teacher, so there. Whom did he touch? Whom would he touch? If we take the time to ask those questions, we're going to behave differently from how we otherwise might. If we are faced with a situation with a difficult person and we ask ourselves, what would Jesus do? Our response to that difficult person may be very different from the response we would prefer to make. When we are talking to somebody who is hateful to us or to other people, we, on the one hand, do not want to accept that hatred. On the other hand, we do not want to respond in kind. If you're hateful to me, as a follower of Jesus, I must not be hateful back to you. I do not have to like you. I do not have to put up with what you're saying, but I don't get to smack you or whatever else I'd really like to do because I follow Jesus, and Jesus tells me to do something else. Everything Jesus says in the Beatitudes here is a reversal of what the world at the time of Jesus and the world in our time would think to be the correct response. And also in our own experience, it's very hard to understand that we can be blessed when we're mourning, or be blessed when we've lost a job, or be blessed when we're ill, or be blessed. How is it that we're blessed in these situations? And it's even harder when we think about the fact that the translation for the Greek word makarios, blessed, another translation for that is happy. Happy are we, how lucky, how happy we are, how lucky we are, how grateful are these people. Now, is anybody here happy all the time? No. You might even, oh, you're happy all the time? You're never upset about anything? Well, I'm glad to hear that, and I hope you can keep being that way. And it's not that you're making yourself happy, it's that you are happy, right? How many of us can make ourselves happy? Pretty much nobody. I can go around like this, and I can pretend I'm happy, or I can be blessed in the way that these two are and be happy almost all the time. But for many of us, when we run into a situation, our definition of happy is not as deep as the biblical definition, or the young people who are sitting here, their definition. Because we think of it as something we have to act like. Or maybe we get up in the morning, we're feeling great, and then we drop our coffee cup on the floor and break it. And then we're not happy. Or we get into a traffic jam when we're on our way to work. Or we have someplace we really want to go, and then we're not happy. In fact, we may be the opposite of happy. But what Jesus is saying is not necessarily happy, 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 but he's saying be blessed, be grateful in all of these situations. It's very hard when we love someone and that person has died for us to be grateful in mourning, except that if that person was someone we love deeply, we can be grateful for having known him or her, for having known them as long as the opportunity was there. And if it's something that is not fair, Like you have a job and you lose it after 30 years of being a loyal employee. That's not fair, and it doesn't seem like one could possibly feel grateful about that or blessed. But Jesus is asking us to look in the situation, whatever situation it is, for where God is in that situation. And if we personally can't find God in that situation, we need to trust that other people are going to be Jesus to us. When we need help, we can trust that people will give us help. When we see that somebody else needs help, it's not just our responsibility, although that's true, but because we love Jesus, we're going to reach out to that person and help. When we see needs, we respond. And that is the key thing there. We can always ask, why is this happening to me? Moses asked that question. It's a perfectly reasonable question to ask. And after we realize that there isn't really an answer to it many times, what we next need to do is say, how can I respond? Where is God in this situation? And how am I going to wait or be patient or do any of these things to be able to recognize that God is present with me? And a lot of times, it's not going to be something we can feel in on of ourselves. It's going to be the arms and hearts and touch of other people who offer us that. And that's the job of the Christian community. When we're being righteous, it's not that we're checking off an action. I'm being very well behaved because I'm going to get rewarded. It's because we love Jesus that we reach out to others. And the other thing for us to remember is these saints you heard about, were any of them perfect? Nope. Anybody in here perfect? Well, I saw somebody raise your hand. No person is perfect. There are saints and there are followers of Jesus who worked all their lives or were martyred or for some other way, and we know that they were representing Jesus to us. And then there are other people with whom we did not get along, but even so, we're supposed to look for Christ in them as well. And the people ages and ages ago, some of them, many of them, the apostles and the evangelists, those people were martyred, but not all of them. And they didn't always have a perfectly wonderful life before they started following Jesus. And there's a story of the Emperor Constantine, who admired Christians, admired Christian administration of the churches and all of that, and it made it possible for Christians to stop being persecuted when he issued the Edict of Milan. But he himself did not become a Christian until he was on his deathbed. He was not baptized till then. Does anybody know why? There might have been some behavior that he didn't want to change, that he would have had to change if he were following Jesus every step of the way. We just need to remember one thing, and that is that Jesus calls to us, that we are followers of Jesus, that we are all saints of God, imperfect as we are, and that it is never too late to turn to God. And we are blessed in knowing that. Amen.